Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we're going to be tackling a very serious subject. It's mental health issues with first responders and veterans. We'll have an all-star panel next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, as I've often said on this show, we had the pandemic, and then I think we've had a mental health pandemic. And I think in most companies, they're progressive enough that an employee can raise their hand and say, boss, I'm having troubles. But what happens if you're a police firefighter, you're a paramedic, or you're working in our armed forces, or even a veteran? Do you feel permission to raise your hand and tell the boss, I think I need some help? That's why I assembled this all-star panel. We're going to begin on my immediate right, Dr. Donna Ashmore. She's the founder of Symbiosis Integrative Health. To her right is Captain Patrick McCully. He's with the wellness unit from the Garland Police Department. And to my far right, Jim Blythe. He's the host of a very popular show on our network, the Veterans Impact Show. I like to call him the Walter Cronkite of Veterans. And for you youngins, Walter Cronkite was a legendary newsman. So why don't we start with you, Donna? Tell me about Symbiosis and how you help veterans.
Okay, so Symbiosis Integrative Health was started under the United States Mission Act to specifically target veteran health care. I thought that especially the veteran community was greatly underserved in their physical medicine and mental health needs. And we have treatments and modalities available that are not everywhere yet, and we get phenomenal results. So I wanted to share this with the world.
Absolutely. And Captain McCully, I think in a perfect world, we could say, yes, everybody has the right to raise their hand and say, I'm having trouble. But is there still something of a stigma in law enforcement to officers, even if they're struggling, man up?
So one of the biggest struggles we have, and you called it a stigma, which I think is exactly accurate, the fear that if I were to raise my hand and say I'm struggling with something, that there'll be some sort of consequence at work. I might lose my position. I might be treated differently by my peers. I might even look at myself differently if I recognize that, hey, mentally something has gone wrong, which is interesting to me because we don't do that with the physical side of things. If someone were to come with an invisible injury, an arm in a sling, or they were bleeding or some way, we would definitely recognize that as an injury. On the mental health side, we're still struggling to get people to come forward, recognize they have their own problems, and ask for help.
Yes. And Jim, in the active armed forces, do they feel permission to raise their hand?
Absolutely not. Now, I do think there are circumstances and things that they're doing to change that, but you wouldn't want somebody flying a jet or somebody firing weapons or doing things like that if they weren't all together there. So there is a big stigma with that. And I think that also relates over to our veteran community. They're afraid to go ask for help.
Absolutely. And this is a very timely show because recently in Houston, there was a story that made national news. Let's go ahead and roll that.
Also today, friends and family said goodbye to veteran Harris County Deputy Christina Caller. Her death last week was ruled a suicide. Caller is one of 4 current or former Harris County deputies who've taken their own lives in just the last 6 weeks. ABC 13's Jessica Willey is live tonight, and this is leading to important conversations about the need for support, Jessica.
Yeah, Eric, the department has a behavioral health division that has made great strides since it was established in 2020 and has led the way, its director says, among law enforcement agencies. But these recent deaths are raising serious concerns for the deputies organization. The question is, what more should they be doing?
It caught a lot of us by surprise.
Harris County Sheriff's Deputy Christina Kohler left home last week and was never seen again. Houston police issuing this alert, the 37-year-old found on the 13th. She had taken her own life. 3 days later, Maria Vasquez, who left the department in December, died by apparent suicide. William Bozeman, also a former deputy, died earlier this week. Tragic news.
One is too many. 2, 3, it's definitely devastating.
That Jose Lopez is helping his friends and colleagues try to process.
It hits very close to home, and it's a reminder to us of how fragile life is. It's also a reminder that we do need to look out for each other. We do need to take care of each other.
Lopez is the president of the Harris County Deputies Organization, but he knew 2 of the late deputies personally.
I knew him for over 20 years.
In just 6 weeks' time, 4 current and former deputies have taken their own lives. Psychologist Thomas McNeese is the director of the department's Behavioral Health Division.
These last few weeks have been difficult for our staff and for the sheriff's office as a whole.
He says he and his division work to provide resources to both former and current employees who are struggling. They embed to help people feel more comfortable.
This profession, unfortunately, takes a toll on people, and over time, the longer they're in it, the more of a toll that it takes, and it changes people.
First responders historically have a high rate of suicide.
It's a combination of things like what they see on the job and then what the job entails.
While the department has been focused on mental health, often leading the way, Lopez says these last few weeks have raised questions.
We can't help to ask the question of, is that enough? Do we need to do something different? What else can we do?
And as they work to support those grieving, McNeese with this message to anyone who might be in crisis.
Reaching out, getting some help, doing something to be able to not stay stuck where you're at is really important.
Jessica Willey, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
And I think everybody can kind of relate to this. Everybody that I know has a stressful job, but I think the job of law enforcement is unique. Captain McCully, why don't you speak to the stresses that happen to officers?
When you think about a first responder, we're responding to, for a lot of people, it's the worst day of their entire life. Tragedy has befallen them. They may have lost a loved one. They may have seen something. They've been a victim of a crime. They may have been a witness of a crime. And we're going to go to that call and we'll go to another one. And a lot of times, as callous as it may sound, we will go to a lot of those. And so for some people, it's their worst day. For us, that's a regular day. And so the officers going to that, they're going to bring some of that home. It's hard to be involved in that much trauma, that much disaster, that much tragedy, and not have that impact you in some way. And so the question is, do you harden yourself and sort of move on like it didn't happen? Do you internalize that? Do you talk to other people about it? And so the challenges are for us, every call is different, and every day is different. And it's one of the reasons we do this job, to serve other people. But that service and sacrifice comes with a price. And sometimes that is seeing things that other people don't want to see and trying to, bring that home with you sometimes. And how do you use that to make yourself better?
Captain, staying with you and without obviously identifying any officers, talk about some successes.
So we've had a lot of success. Chief Bryan, as our chief of police, has done a really remarkable job at being on the forefront of this issue of trying to be really supportive of officers going through different challenges. And so the neat thing about it is, as we recognize, problematic things, challenges that someone says, hey, this call bothered me. Do we give them time to talk about it? Do we give them room to breathe? Do we allow them to recover from it, much like we would with a physical injury? And that's kind of been the challenge for us of people seeing, doing CPR on an infant that may not survive, going to a call where someone has been, brutally injured or beaten or even died. Even something not really rudimentary for us, but doing a death notification to a family that may have lost a loved one and having to endure that sort of pain as you tell someone the worst thing that's ever happened to them and you're the bearer of that bad news. And being able to stay in that moment and provide that service, those are all different things as part of what we do. And that's a Tuesday, for lack of a better word, because for law enforcement, first responders, it is relentless. There's no such thing as taking tomorrow off because I had a really bad call today. Yes. The reality is once that call's over, we're going to go to another one. From the mental health standpoint, that's also our goal, is to be able to go to this call, recover from it, and build ourselves up to go to the next one.
Sure.
So,
Jim, in the veterans community, famously, I think 22 die every single day, and I think that number might have gone up. What is it about veterans coming home from battle, and how are their health needs being addressed?
It's a whole lot. Some similar and some different. One of the things you're thinking about is you're now out. You don't have your buddies around you. You don't have those who've been through the same thing. So your support group is gone. You've now come home. Now, you're not necessarily going back into battle, but you have these problems. And the problems vary between each individual on not only what they saw, but body chemistry and brain chemistry. And this is some things I learned from Dr. Ashmore about we can do things more than just conversation to be able to change some of the functions of the brain, which allow them to sleep and allow them to function. So it's totally different from the standpoint of most of these people are not going to go back into action. Some of them, though, are also police officers. That's where Captain McCully and his team came to Symbiosis, because they had so many veterans who were police officers who had remarkable results. So it's a little bit different. So that's where the wellness unit is such a fantastic idea to build that team, to be able to address that and to be that camaraderie.
Sure. And Dr. Ashmore, let's bring you back into the conversation. When people come to you for the first time, do you sense the stigma? Does it take courage for them to come forward?
Oh, absolutely. And although things have gotten a lot easier over time, there is still that stigma, as you stated, that people are either embarrassed or just don't want to admit. They think it's a fault. I have a problem and I want to talk about it or address it. And so many problems interdepartmentally, okay? They might have colleagues that they would rather talk to than go to seek professional health care. Same thing in the veteran world. And to expound a little bit about what Jim said and Captain McCully, another big problem that we see in the veteran world is transitioning, especially the veterans that have served 20 plus years. You know, when they've served that amount of time, you know, normally when you join the service, you're very young, right? So you grow up in the service. When you're out, that structure is no longer there. When you're active duty, you have a place to live. You have a place to eat. There's always a chow hall, no matter where you go. If you're deployed, you go to TDYs. There's always something to do. And so many have explained that to me as a sense of action, if you will, right? When you're discharged and you're home, so many people are lost. They don't know what to do, where to go. There's no structure. There's no excitement. So many have told me there's just no excitement. So, and then with the police officers, everything you said, and then what about your officers on the force that have had personal traumatic experiences in their own life that they have dealt with, or they think that they've put them behind them, but then they go to a death scene, for example, say someone was involved in a fatality accident with a family member. They go see that and relive that over and over, you know, so PTSD on top, okay? Sure. So we see that in the community, and yes, to answer your question, there still is a stigma, although it is getting easier. I've seen it over the years.
Sure.
Many things have changed. The people are more freely speaking about it and open to discussing it.
We're going to show some video from our library, and as we do that, Captain McCully, I know very publicly the divorce rate is very high among first responders and veterans. So is it, I'm imagining when you say goodbye to your husband, your wife, you're kissing them, you don't know if you're coming home. Are people just internalizing all of that? Is it just getting bottled up?
Well, I think a lot of it is, as Dee Dee said, you're a person, you're a husband, you're a wife, you're a child, you're a parent. All those don't go away just because you put the uniform on. And they all sort of come roaring back when you put the uniform back on. So the challenge is always going to be, I've still got to meet those obligations. So if I've had a bad day at work, now it's time to come home and take out the trash or do dad things. Those become really challenging if I've just come to a horrific crime scene where maybe a child was killed or murdered. It's really hard to transition sometimes. And how do you explain that to your child? How do you explain that maybe today's not a day that we do a lot of hugging because of that? Or maybe today is not the day that I want to go to a swimming pool, to go to a pool party, a typical family event, because I've been to a scene where someone drowned at the scene.
Sure.
And so it becomes really hard to integrate those different pieces into a relationship. And how do you build a strong relationship to where you're still also being a good father, being a good husband, being a good son or daughter?
Sure. And I know in the military, you go to boot camp, which lasts several weeks. But I'm told that when you're being discharged, there's like half a day of decompressing before you're sent back to your families. Do you remember Jim coming back and
well,
trying to adjust?
It was late December of 1970, and I had made 3 combat tours of Vietnam. I got off the ship, went down to San Diego, got discharged, and the guy said, "Bye, see you. Don't let the gate hit you on the way out."
Really?
I mean, there was nothing then. Now that's the Vietnam era and before. They've changed and they have programs now, but most of the young men and women tell me that they were more involved in just trying to get out.
Sure.
They didn't pay attention. And a lot of them don't know about benefits. That's why we do the Veterans Impact Show, and we have people on from the VA and the Texas Veterans Commission to not only talk about benefits, but one of the biggest things, and I want to come back to this for what Dr. Ashmore does, you have to understand PTSD, TBI, traumatic brain injuries are caused by a hit to the head, traumatic brain. But PTS frequently can cause chemical changes in your body. Mm-hmm. And if these chemical changes aren't taken care of, then you're not going to sleep at night. Then it's going to escalate. And that's the problem. It continues to escalate till it gets completely out of control. That's where Dr. Ashmore and her neuroscience, because she's a neuroscientist, they have come up with a modality that works to change your brain, change the hypothalamus, increase blood flow to the brain. Sure. So all of a sudden, you're curing the brain where they can sleep. And the biggest thing that I heard when I was treated, and I felt myself, I slept like a log at night.
Really? Let's talk about that since Jim teed it up so nicely. We have a page off of your website. This is one of your modalities. It's called Vector. So as we put this on the screen, I want you to describe what we're looking at. And we're going to scroll down.
Okay, so vector therapy is essentially non-invasive neuromodulation. And the easiest way to explain it is think of the success you get with acupuncture and the success with electronic medicine, and you combine the two. So we are accessing your nervous system via peripheral nerve endings in your feet and hands with electronic modalities. So it's the only device on the market that is fully systemic in nature. So it works to normalize chemical functions in the brain. So essentially, if you have an overabundance of norepinephrine, that fight or flight, you just can't turn off your brain at night to go to sleep, it helps create a chemical balance. So essentially what it's designed to do is normalize the chemical functions in the brain to put your body back in homeostasis. Okay,
and
completely non-invasive.
How often do they need this treatment?
Every patient that comes in, everything we do is medically supervised. So we have a multidisciplinary approach, a team of medical doctors, physical medicine, occupational medicine, psychiatry, psychology, counselors. But for this particular modality, we bring every patient in for 10 consecutive days because just like neuromuscular re-education, to re-educate your brain to recreate the chemicals that have stopped producing naturally, either due to disease, injury, illness, whatever has happened to you in the past, why it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, or you could be taking medication. We need to be able to titrate you off that medication to make your brain produce all the neurochemicals it should produce naturally. We'll bring you in 10 consecutive days, and then you're reevaluated.
Well, let's talk a little bit about medication, because I have to imagine, Captain McCully, that people are maybe self-medicating with drugs or alcohol just to de-stress. Is that common?
So individually, it's kind of hard to answer, but that's kind of an easy hit sometimes to get people down. There's sort of this myth in law enforcement that after a bad day, guys might go and drink to kind of bring everything down. And the challenge is, with whatever the mechanism is, you are going to be up. That's the reality of the job. That you get sent to a call, you may be running lights and sirens. It's going to elevate everything. And Dee Dee mentioned fight or flight. That's kind of the universe for the most first responders. You spend a lot of time navigating that. You bring it up, you have to bring it down. And so the challenge is always going to be, how do I bring it back down? And so sometimes, people will seek out, behaviors, substances they shouldn't use to bring it down artificially. In a perfect world, you can find other ways that are safer to bring it back down.
Sure.
Because we also had to get you back up when those calls happen.
Well, one of the things we saw during the pandemic was isolation, which is really probably the greatest threat, isn't it? Veterans support groups, they weren't meeting physically anymore. Why don't you all kind of address isolation?
Well, one of the big parts of what Symbiosis does is by going through, and it's with an FDA-approved equipment, through under medical direction, they go through, they set up, and they get the right protocols to do whatever the patient needs. Then they need counseling, they need prescription management. All of these things are put in together. So the first thing is get your mind right, boss. Remember, Cool Hand Luke, get your mind right, boss?
Yeah.
Well, once you got your mind right, then you can begin to detox. You can begin to make it work. And Jeff, I got to tell you, as I sat there and I did my 10 treatments, the stories that I heard, and you know me, I love to interview people.
Sure.
Almost every one of them had been suicidal at one time, whether it was pain management from battle injuries or moral injuries for PTSD, whatever. The pain management started cleaning up the brain. Then they all said, you know, when I came here, I was suicidal. I was ready. I was going to take my 9/11 and do something with it. Now I'm great. I got rid of it. I'm feeling great. I've gone back to work. Dee Dee's got so many, 5,000 veterans that have been treated. And every time I talk to them, any of them, my brothers and sisters, they all say the same thing. I'm doing great. They're back to a productive life. This is a total treatment to get them back to a productive life. And you know where she started? Down at Brooke Army Medical Center working on phantom pain, people who had lost a limb.
Right.
Severe PTSD.
Yeah.
Couldn't sleep through the night, excruciating pain. But one thing I want to add to what Jim said when you were talking about self-isolation, you're absolutely right. We've had some patients that were agoraphobic that were referred from the VA, and we literally had to beg them to come in just to give it a try. You know, look, if you come in and you get no relief whatsoever, all you've lost with us is time. And then one particular patient stands out at the end of his 10 treatments. He never wanted to stop. He was coming every single day, and it's like, well, you're good. You know, you're living, you're back to work, you're doing these things. And he never wanted to go back to the person he was. But one thing I will say is at our office, we have a very large open treatment room, almost like a therapeutic setting. Okay. So oftentimes patients are there and they're just bouncing off one another. And I've always said this, our office is not like the typical sterile doctor's office environment. Because we also provide peer support. So we have a plethora of counselors, but we also have just veterans that come in and can offer peer support, because sometimes you just need someone to talk to, right? So we do have an open setting for that, to get rid of that self-isolation, to help them.
Yes.
And then we also have private treatment rooms for those that just want the peace and quiet and to be left alone.
So we're actually coming to the end of the show. Jim, you have a longer show than I have. Mine. This is actually generous.
Well, I got news for you.
Yeah.
Captain McCully and Dee Dee are coming back on my show.
They coming back
next week or so.
Then you'll get to hear part 2. So why don't we do this? Let's go down the line and each one of you give a final thought. So, Dee Dee, you want to start?
I'd just say if you feel like you're in need, if you're not able to go to sleep at night, turn the brain off, and you have random thoughts or just not at peace, if there's chaos in your mind,
yes,
talk to someone. Find someone, a neighbor, a friend, a colleague, a professional healthcare provider. We are open not 24 hours. I'm sorry. We're not open 24 hours a day, but you can always contact us via the website, and someone will be in touch with you even if you just need someone to talk to.
Captain?
So mine is much more on the peer support side. We mentioned the isolation. I'm a big advocate for trying to flex your muscles before you need them. So in this sort of space, a lot of people say, I don't really need any mental health resources till I really need it. Almost like going to a doctor when you have a critical injury. It's like, no, this is much more like dentistry work. It's good to have people to go to. Think of who would you go to if you were in need? Who would I go to when I maybe got to a dark place? And if you don't have somebody, it's much better to think about it now when I'm not in that dark spot, to identify it's going to be Dee Dee. She's who I'm going to call. Does she know what happens when I make that call? And treat it much more like dentistry stuff, where It's more maintenance levels to where I know who I'm going to reach out to. I know who it's going to be. I've kind of trusted that system, so it makes it much easier. It's a well-worn path when that opportunity may be there.
Beautiful. Jim, final word.
Well, to my veteran brothers and sisters, you want to get well? Come see us. To my veteran police officers, you want to be well? Get involved with your unit. The whole point of what we're trying to do is spread this idea of the wellness unit in the police departments over even into the VA and into the military, to where we're taking care of people right then and there where they can come back.
Wow. What a great way to end this show. We're also going to leave you with each one of their websites in order to get in touch with them. We're going to start with Dee Dee's. It's symbiousccn.com. Thank you so much. And then the Garland Police Department is garlandpolice.com. And then, Jim, we're going to throw you to the YouTube page so you can subscribe to his Veterans Impact show. Thank you all for shedding light on this very important subject.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.